In this video, I will go over how to use 3D Builder and make a chair. So to start off, I'm going to click on Cube. If you don't see these icons, just go to Insert, click on Cube, and here we go. So first of all, I'm on a newer version of 3D Builder. So basically the biggest difference is when we go to scale right here. The older versions have a lock icon right here. In this case, I don't have one. So what the lock icon does is when I click on an object and let's say I want to stretch this up, if I was to do that in the older version, I would have to click on the icon for it to be unlocked. If it is locked, then whenever you click on whatever arrow, it'll scale it up or down in proportion to all sides. So that's what the lock does. But in the newer version, I can either just use the arrows to stretch or squish, or use these corners to scale on all X, Y, and Z sides. So anyways, I'm going to delete this, and first of all I'm just going to make a simple chair. So to do that, I brought in my cube, and I'm going to scale it down, and then I'm going to stretch it up. Now I'm not going off measurements or anything like that. That's not a big deal. But the reason why I scale it down and keep it at this height or something like this is because let's say I was going to do it the other way around. So I'm going to start from scratch. Here's my cube, and I'm going to scale it up. So I'm going to zoom out, move my camera down here, because if I don't, so here I am, and if I try to scale it up, well, now I got to move my camera out, move it up. I got to move my camera down now. I got to do all this management and maybe move it up higher. So maybe something like that. So there's one leg. Then I got to go back to my cube, make another one, and then make a seat out of this through whether it's scaling, things like that. But basically doing it like this means having to do a lot of camera movement, and for kids I don't want to do that, so I'm just keeping it simple. So here's the one that I had from before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the cube, and I'm going to scale this down. And actually, I'll wait till the end to do that. Here I have one leg, so I'm going to make another leg. Now instead of having to create another leg from scratch, if you were to scale it by hand and just do the same thing, you run the risk of not having the exact same size and shape. And when it comes to 3D printing, especially a chair, the legs do have to be the exact same. So it's best to just select it, go to Object, Duplicate. Now, there is a problem when it comes to duplicating that I'm not a fan of. So first, I'm just going to move this to the side. So now I have two legs, and let me click on this. Now the problem with duplicating in this that I'm not a fan of is when I select it and then duplicate it, it always moves it to the side, and I do not like that because now when I try to move this down, well, this is already not aligned to this. So I do that, and then I have to kind of eyeball it or assume that it's lined up, and in this case it's not. Now for me it's easy to line up, but for kids, especially who've never done 3D, it just means more work for them. So to keep it simple, I'm going to have these two selected, and before I continue, let me explain sticky selection. Sticky selection is basically when I click on an object, this one's selected. You can tell by this blue glow and the arrows that are around it. And with sticky selection on, which is on right here, when I click on the something else, it selects that as well as keeps this one selected too. So now I have two things selected. But if I just want to select one thing, like okay, I have this one selected, but now I just want to select this one, well, I cannot click on the background to deselect this. I have to go back, click it once to deselect, and now I can click on this. I can always turn this off and just have the normal selection process like any other 3D software. It depends, it's just a preference. Kids might find this easier to work with. You can always click, hold shift, click on the other one, and now I have two things selected. Again, it's just a preference, but anyways, yeah, that's the selection. So anyways, I'm going to select both objects. I'm going to duplicate this. So there it is. And I'm just going to move this down. I'm just going to snap this. So there's that. And now I'm just going to move this down. And now I have my four legs. Now, if I click on both and I do copy, paste, whoops, let me delete these ones too, just to show you. Copy, paste, well, copy, paste. So it does move to distance. Well, it's just like duplicating, so it's not reliable. I just prefer duplicating just because it's one click instead. But yeah. So again, it's up to you. So anyways, here I have these, and I'm just going to go back to Insert, go to Cube. Here is my cube, and I'm just going to move this up. And one thing is, when you're trying to move objects on top of something else, 3D Builder will actually snap. So let me do like this. So it snaps, and I know it's touching it. Now, just to be on the safe side, especially with kids, it's okay to just move this down a little bit. Just to make sure that it's actually inside, that they're actually in contact. You don't want to 3D print something where something is floating like this. So that's something really important. So here I have this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down. I'm not trying to be perfect or realistic with sizes and dimensions and all that stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this side over here as the back part of the chair. So this is where the backrest will be, and this side is where the legs will point when seated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this like so until it snaps, or maybe just line it up. Make sure both sides. I look at it from all sides, especially top and bottom, so when it looks like this, I make sure I don't have something like that. So it's not a big deal if it sticks out a little bit. That's fine. In this case, I don't want there to be anything sticking out from here. So now that that's done, I'm just going to stretch it over here. That's fine. And then I'm going to stretch it over here. And because this is where the legs rest, I'm just going to leave a bit of a gap over here, like an overhang basically. That's fine. And then rather than having to do this all over again, because I already have the same, because this is the width that I'm going to be using for the backrest, I'm just going to select that, duplicate, and of course it's over there. So I'm going to move this back here. There we go. And I'm just going to rotate this, something like that. I can always just type in the number here. So 270, enter. There we go. I'm just going to move it back here. And then I'm just going to move this up. Wait for this to snap. And there's my chair. Now, if I want to add something extra to it, I can with this one selected, like let's say I want to add like a design on this. To make things easier, I'm just going to have this selected. I'm going to go to Edit and Emboss. Now I can add text, so I guess hello. And press Tab, and there we go. And I can change the font, Black Ops, I don't know. And if I want, I can then scale it. So just like before, here we have this. If I were to scale it, in this case I do have the lock. So here's the lock. If it is unlocked, and I try to scale it up, now I can stretch it. But yeah, so something like that. And then I have this little arrow on this side that's pointing, that's over here. Basically that's how much it sticks out. So I can have it stick in a little bit or stick out a lot. Maybe something like that. Click Emboss. And I get this weird thing. Now I have wireframe on. To turn wireframe off, I believe you gotta go to settings. Snapping is on. Paint. There should be a setting for this, but I'm not going to bother right now. Oh, it's going to be here. There it is. So there's wireframe off, and we can clearly see this. Another thing is, in this case, I used a font. Whoops, select, edit, emboss. This is a font that I've installed on my computer, so you can download fonts from the internet and install them. There are some fonts that don't play nicely, so in case something's looking weird with a font, it just means that it's not going to work. Luckily for me, this one did. But yeah, sometimes a font won't play nicely. And then, because I did one, there's no way to erase it other than just undoing. So Control Z or just click on that, and then go back and do whatever. But if I like that, I can go back, have this selected, click on Emboss again, and instead of letters, maybe I'll do a shape, and maybe I'll do this. Actually, I'll do a happy face, and I'm just gonna move it up. Now to move it up, you actually have to click and drag on this face, which is kind of weird. But yeah, that's how it works. And then to scale, whoops, let me undo that, lock that. So here's this. I'm going to click Emboss. And let's say I wanted to have a hole through the eyes for some reason. I'm going to go to Cylinder, and I want to move this up. And I'm going to scale this. Whoops. I'm going to rotate this. Type in 90, enter. Move this. Move this. And, well, it's not going to be exact, but it'll have to do. So there's that. And now I'm just going to stretch this over here. That's close enough. So let's say I want to do holes. Well, the way holes work is it has to, whatever this object in blue, this shape, whatever it touches, it is going to subtract from this chair or from this shape. So if it was like this, if it's touching a little bit, it'll just carve out whatever that little piece it's touching. But because it's going completely through, it's going to have a hole. So whenever I do something like this, I don't go like this, where it's barely sticking out, like that. I want to be sure, so I just drag it like that. It's not a big deal, but I just want to be sure that it's working or that it's going to work. So with that done, I'm going to go to edit and then subtract. Down to bottom right, it's going to do like some calculating thing sometimes. And there's my, whoops. There is my whole.